Hey, welcome back, Military Journeyman. This is part 4 of the Marines, the Coast Guard video series. If you haven't seen the full playlist, I highly suggest. We've talked about so many cool and interesting things. I'll include a playlist in the description box below and up above, and let's just jump into this conversation. You brought up using the tuition assistance and how that was something that you weren't really kind of given the option to do that. But with the benefits in the Coast Guard versus the Marines, do you mind kind of going off of that as well?
So the Coast Guard, we have like a really large budget for not that many people to get all types of certificates and education benefits. It's awesome. And we have a whole bunch of resources, especially being where we're located, like in the cyber central of the world. I'm thinking maybe not the world, probably Japan is, but cyber central of America. The Marine Corps, so they had those options. I was in a fast tempo, heavy operation environment. So I didn't really get the opportunity to utilize them, but they had it. So I'm sure if you're like admin or somebody who has like a 9 to 5 job, you could probably get the same benefits, maybe even better benefits. I'm not sure. But there was one program that I was eligible to do. It was called MASP, where you essentially start out at 8th grade English, 8th grade math, and you work up to 12th grade English, 12th grade math. So it's for people who like just got out of high school, did their 4 years, and now they're getting out to go back to college. So it's like a refresher course. I think it was like 2 weeks. It's pretty good. There's a yeah. Then after that, you could take the CLEP test. So that was pretty good education opportunity. A lot of the courses they go onto your joint service transcript, and they're eligible for credits for college. I'm still waiting on my transcript to get back, so I could tell you how much of that actually got transferred. I will say about like 50% of them say military specific credit not recommended for like scouting and patrolling or like combative driving or something. Like none of it transfers, not even elective credit. Um, I'm pretty sure like all the education benefits are usually universal. It's more job dependent on if you can get it or not.
And with one of the benefits that I kind of look at is like your leave, being able to take large amounts of leave. Like I'm taking like probably like 2 weeks coming up in the next month or so. I'm gonna take another 3 weeks after that. It's like you have so much dispensable leave in the Marines. How does that work?
So you get these things called leave blocks. So you're not allowed to take leave whenever you want. So it's like after around major holidays, if you don't have anything planned like a field op or deployment or any of that, like if you're on deployment, leave is not a thing. If you're back in the States and there's a field op coming up, you're not going on leave. So it's like Thanksgiving, Christmas, like it'll give you like 14 days or something, and you can take the entire 14 days. Or you can take 12 days, but expect to be on duty the last 2 days. You know what I mean? So there's that. So mm, did I explain that well enough? Where there's lead blocks, so you can only take specified days.
And what about the opportunity for going to college? I know that you said that you kind of had a little bit of a difficult situation with like trying to get the tuition assistance, which is a benefit that every service does. Just like different services might have a little bit more. I know Coast Guard has a little bit less right now. That was a pretty new change that they did. But what is it for like taking college in the Marines?
They used to have a thing. I forget what it's called. I think it was called. So you know how in the Coast Guard, officers or senior enlisted can go off, or maybe even warrant officers can go off for 2 years to go to college to work towards an associate or a bachelor's. They had a thing where you could spend the last year of your contract, a 4 year contract. So you're essentially only doing 3 years, but you can spend the last year going to college. I forgot what it's called. I think it was called. It's not TAPS. I don't think it's a FAP. So that's also another aspect of the Marine Corps. There's a thing called FAP. where you can go off and be a gate guard. Like, you know how the Coast Guard has non-rates to fill all the niche roles that don't really have, like the people who mow the lawn? That's a FAPT Marine. So you could go off and mow the lawns, or you can stand guard at the gate, uh, or you could be the guy who stands in the gym and he re-racks all the weights, he checks people in. Like it's all the odd jobs are people who have like 6 months left under contracts. So that's like another weird aspect of the Marine Corps. But there was a thing, I forgot what it was called. It's another like 3-letter acronym. I can Google it afterwards or something. But I think they stopped that. I think they stopped that a long time ago. Like back in 2014, they stopped doing it.
So with the benefits, was that something that you were kind of like educated on, or that you're aware of, or do you just kind of like one of the big things is like the VA loan is a really big one that isn't really talked about too much, but that's what I try to teach people about. The GI Bill, tuition assistance. You have these the certifications that you can get. You can go to like different C schools and stuff like that. Is that stuff that's available in the Marines, or that they teach you about?
Yes, it's available. They might have taught you a little bit about it, like maybe a day's worth in boot camp. But as far as being in the fleet, never gets talked about, or at least in my unit. Never, like, I learned more about all the opportunities I had in TRS, like to transition readiness seminar, like whenever you're getting out, like I had 4 weeks left and I learned about all these resources I had like 3 weeks out. I was like, awesome, great.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty big. So we've been talking for a while. I wanna wrap this up. What would you recommend to someone who wants to join the Marines versus the Coast Guard? If you could give any advice to maybe a young person that is on the edge considering both of them, what would you say?
On the verge of considering both of them, I would say do both. You become a very well-rounded individual if you do both. Now it is more of like a 4-year detour, and it is kind of more of a joking answer, but honestly, like I don't regret any of my decisions. Like going infantry was an awesome experience that I will never get to relive, and I constantly talk about it all the time. But I'm in the Coast Guard now, and now I have such a greater like appreciation for everything that it offers. I love the work life, aspect of it. Like my job is really nice. I get all these education benefits, but I also have like all that worldly experience about being like infantry and stuff. And I feel like I've essentially proven myself to myself. So I have like a lot of self confidence from it. And I mean, I'm guessing that saying having a varied career is a good thing. So I would say do both. Or, I mean, also consider what you really want. So the Coast Guard setting my entire life up. Like, if I got out next year, I would have enough certs and quals to get a really decent job and live a happy life for the rest of my life. Now, the Marine Corps Infantry, as soon as I got out, I didn't even have college set up. I was just lost in the world. I was like, okay, well, I need to re-enlist or something. So I considered all my possibilities. Coast Guard accepts prior service with open arms. The only caveat is that you have to get demoted back to an E3 and you have to go off to depot, which is the delayed entry program, or the full boot camp. So that was a hard pill to swallow. I had to definitely suck up like my pride for the entire first year of my Coast Guard career. But yeah, after that, it was just smooth sailing. I'm in a smooth sailing stage right now, so I'm pretty happy. I don't regret anything. I think it made me a better person, kind
Very
of.
cool. So to give light to the other side of the Marine Corps, what would you say would be the biggest benefits, best things that you could take away from the Marine Corps that you can't get maybe like let's say in the Coast Guard?
So for each branch, they have like a specific mission. You know what I mean? So with the Marine Corps having like the whole offensive, like combat oriented mission, you get to do a lot of interesting courses that you don't really have the opportunity to do in other branches. I mean, you do have the opportunity in like the Army. They like Army and Marine Corps essentially. Like I'm pretty sure all the branches just share each other's courses, but your command's not going to approve it if your job doesn't relate to it somehow. So like the swimming course I did, it was awesome. It was fantastic. I loved it. There's the marksmanship courses, so like shooting guns that I would never possibly have the money to afford, shooting rockets and high explosives and like Mark 32s, like the little revolver grenade launcher. Those were all fun things to shoot that I will never be able to do again. You know what I mean? And then camaraderie. So the biggest thing about the Marine Corps that everybody misses and everybody talks about is one, I miss all my friends because you're essentially like if you're a single Marine and you live in a barracks, you're living in a giant hotel full of all your best friends. So everybody's like a staircase away or a few rooms away. So like every day you go out drinking and every day is a party for like years. And then you EAS, you exit active service, and now you have to go get a big boy job. So you got to go to college and act like a normal civil adult. So that's pretty difficult for other people. Having friends, so like during all these like hard like the prison treatment and stuff, you're not doing this by yourself. You're not going through the boot process of the fleet by yourself. There's usually like five other dudes with you that all got off the same bus. So it's like you and those guys are gonna like forge these bonds that are like undying. You know what I mean? Like I still talk to the dude that I walked off the bus with to this day, even though I've been out for like 2 years at this point, maybe 2.5, 3 years. So it's like the harder the times get, the better the friendships get. And the Marine Corps is all about making your times as hard as possible. But then it's like everybody, there's always like one or a few people who turn those really negative situations and turn it into a good thing. Like I remember it was like a week long field op, or like it was like a month or something, and it was like we got lost out in the woods, like we ran out of food and everything was really really bad, and just like somebody said like, oh man, it couldn't get any worse, and then it started raining and everybody just started laughing because we all just kind of broke at that point, so it was funny. You're not going to have too many of those situations in a job like sitting at a desk. You know what I mean? You're not going to like you could be really good friends with one of your coworkers if you're like in a desk setting, but it's just not gonna feel the same. You know what I mean? Like the bond hasn't been forged,
Like
essentially.
like in when a lot of people graduate from Coast Guard boot camp, they make the Facebook group. They're like really tight. You're messaging them all the time, and then eventually that kind of dies off. Then you start not really talking to your boot camp buddies as much anymore. But because you build those bonds. But what you're saying is that in the Marine Corps, you've built up these bonds for years, and so it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah, it's not like a 2 month boot camp where like, oh, this was the hardest thing of your life. It's like, well, wait till you get to a surf station. You know what I mean? Then those guys are your new best friends. You know what I mean? It's like the friendships forged by the hottest fires last the longest. You know what I mean? So I can understand the boot camp thing. I tried telling people whenever I graduated Coast Guard boot camp, it's like, you guys aren't going to talk. You guys aren't going to talk for longer than a month. I guarantee it. And it's because you guys are living across the country. Like you only talked periodically for the span of 2 months. Like the forge isn't that hot. You know what I mean? I tried explaining things, but I was a little bit cynical because, I was just sucking up my pride for 2 months. So that was the hardest part about the transition process from boot camps, was acting like I haven't done anything before.
Well, thank you so much, Dylan, for taking the time to really kind of shed light on something that has never been talked about. So this is the first instance of a Marine Coast Guard that has kind of come out and is vocal about this on this platform. So I think it's really cool. I really hope that the people that are listening, that they don't get the wrong picture. We're not trying to paint the Marines or paint the Coast Guard in a certain way. And a lot of this is also coming from uh, Dylan's perspective because he was infantry. He doesn't represent the whole Marines. It's not like this is infantry and Dylan's perspective, and this is what all the Marines is like. No, this is Dylan's perspective coming from a particular unit, transitioning into the Coast Guard at another particular unit, being an ant, which is a sweet job. I was at an ant, and that's a really good life. So it's not the cutter life. And then he's also at a unit now that has a lot of resources and a lot of availability. So just take this information with a grain of salt. Use it as a resource to be able to learn about some of the different things that are out there. I really don't want people to be like, oh, Marines is this, Coast Guard is this, because it really isn't that black and white. Like Dylan said at the end, after talking about all these different things, joining the Marines really changed his life and gave him confidence and gave him all these things. Yes, there were negative aspects of it, but the same thing could be said about the Coast Guard as well. So I really hope that you all enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Dylan, for taking the time. If you have any other questions, I'll include everything in the show notes. If there's any way that anybody wants to reach out to Dylan, is that something that if anybody has any questions or anything, if anybody wants to reach you, is that something you'd be cool with?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll include that in the show notes. Ways to reach out to Dylan if you have questions. If you want to join the Marines, join the Coast Guard, you don't really know which way to go. Again, of course, I'll be in the comment section. But thank you so much, and until next time, peace out. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you're enjoying these, just smash that like button for me. Let me know that you are enjoying these conversations. If you want to see the full interview of this series, I'll include it right here. Or if you want to keep watching something else, you can watch this right here. Until next time, peace out.